folks, it's Dan here again with the fourth in our series looking at the 7 signs from John's Gospel. Each day we're taking one of these signs, these miracles of Jesus, and seeing what it teaches us about who Jesus is and why he came. Now, when this whole lockdown first sort of started, there was a lot of panic buying, wasn't there? And we quickly realised what it was that mattered the most. Namely toilet roll, right? But also lots of other things were going off the shelves. I remember walking through Tesco's and there was nothing on the shelves, particularly no bread, milk, eggs. Those were all the key things that were missing. We quickly discovered what it is we wanted and needed the most. You know, crises can put things in perspective, can't they? They can make us realise what really matters most. Maybe you've been reflecting on that. You're missing things that you felt that you really need, or you realise you've been taking things for granted for so long. The times like this put stuff in perspective, don't they? They remind us and show us what really matters. In our sign today, we're going to see something about bread, actually, but also what really matters. This fourth sign is, well, it's a classic, really, isn't it? It's Jesus feeding the 5,000. You can find this in John chapter 6. Let me just kind of overview it again for you. Jesus is being followed by this massive crowd of people, and they're all clearly hungry. He sees that they're hungry, and so he asks his disciples, hey, give them something to eat. And the disciples are like, we can't feed all of these people. But of course, Jesus knows he's the only one who can really deal with this problem of their hunger. And so he manages to find 5 loaves and 2 fish provided by a little boy in the crowd. And he multiplies it. And hey, presto, dinner is served. Miraculously, Jesus manages to multiply the food to feed this multitude. And it says everybody had their fill. Everybody had as much as they wanted, and there was plenty left over in the end as well. And all of this story sort of reminds us of an event that happened hundreds of years before, where God himself had provided for his people, the people of Israel. They were also in a wilderness, just like Jesus and this crowd, and they were also hungry. And so God, in his power and mercy, provides food, bread from heaven, that manna that came down from heaven, in fact. And so this is echoing what God has done before. And again, the sign is pointing to us to who Jesus really is. He is the Son of God who provides for his people, just like God did all those years before. But it's what happens next that is probably most interesting. The following day, some of the crowd come and find Jesus again. And in verse 26 of John chapter 6, it says this: Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of loaves. These folk had come to Jesus looking for another meal from him. And then he says this: do not labour for food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you, for on him God the Father has set his seal. So can you see what Jesus is beginning to say here? I mean, first of all, he's pointing out the fact that they had come to him for all the wrong reasons. They weren't interested in the sign. They weren't following the signs. They were coming for a free meal, basically. They were coming for his cooking. And Jesus said, well, that can't be right. That's all wrong. You've got me wrong. But secondly, Jesus is also pointing out the fact that they're living their life for all the wrong reasons. They are labouring, living, working for food that perishes. Jesus is pointing out that they had their priorities wrong. They thought daily bread was the most important thing. But Jesus here points to other things, to eternal things that are even more important, even than daily bread. You know, in all of us, there is this hunger, this longing, this thirst for satisfaction, for being filled, And you see that here in these folks coming to Jesus. They were hungry physically, but Jesus is pointing to a spiritual hunger that really lies in all of us. A lot of us spend our lives seeking satisfaction in anything but Jesus. For some of us, that might be material things, the nice house or the car or the clothes. We think if we've got the right stuff in my life, then I'll be happy, then I'll be satisfied. Everybody's on a satisfaction, happiness quest, really. Or it might be sexuality and my sexual identity and freedom and intimacy with other people. Maybe it's my reputation, my power, my position in the company, my career, the right relationships. I need to have a husband, or I need to have a wife, I need to have the kids. Then I'll be satisfied. All sorts of things. You just fill in the blank. We seek after these things. We live for things that Jesus would call perishing things. Food that perishes, that can't actually really satisfy. And maybe you know that you've had it, you've got what you've longed for, but it's disappointed you, or it's faded, or it's broken, or it's disappeared. We have been seeking things that really are perishing things. But this is what Jesus says next. He says this: I am the true bread. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. Jesus says, I am the living bread. He offers us true bread that truly satisfies. And it's not physical bread, it's himself. It's himself. It is only in a right relationship with God through Jesus Christ that we can be truly satisfied. In Jesus we have his presence. He's always with us. In Jesus we have his love and his mercy. We don't need to strive after getting the acceptance and approval of everybody when we have his love and his approval. He gives us forgiveness and mercy. He lifts the burdens of sin and guilt and shame. He gives us power and strength and joy and peace. And on we could go. In Jesus, we have everything we need. He can satisfy our souls. I remember when I was 17, just before I became a Christian, I had everything a 17-year-old could ever possibly want. You name it, I probably had it, right? I had everything a 17-year-old kid could want, but I was desperately unhappy. On the outside, I probably looked okay, but inside I was desperately unsatisfied with my life. But in Jesus, I found life. I found satisfaction. And so the next question that people ask is, well, how do we get this bread? What do we need to do to get this bread of life? Do we need to work for it? Do we need to become religious then? Start being religious. Then we can get it if we could just do the right things. Jesus says, no, that's not it. That's not it. Rather, we must believe. We must believe. He says in verse 29, this is the work of God, that you believe in him who he has sent. He says this: I am the bread of life, the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. Jesus says it's not about what you do to earn this gift. It is something I have done for you. I give my life, my flesh, on that cross when I died that first Easter. And I gave my life in your place to take your punishment, to pay your debt so that you're free from it now and can truly, truly live. I don't know if you've ever been in debt, or what it feels like to be owing money and have that looming debt over you. Jesus frees us from the debt of sin so that we're free now. We're free to live in his joy and in his satisfaction. And so what he calls us to is putting our faith in that, in what he's done on our behalf. That's all we need to do, so to speak, is believe. Again, that's the point, as we've seen almost all week, is will you put your faith in who Jesus is and what he's done for you so that you might have life and satisfaction in his name? That's what this sign is pointing us to. Jesus is the Son of God who provides for our every need, especially the need of our souls. Well, I hope you'll join me again tomorrow for the 5th sign in our series. May God bless you.